Okay, the side path to spiritual success. Chapter 5 of The Lost Princess. The Viceroy traveled here and there for a long time through deserts, fields, and forests. He searched for her for a very long time. Finally, while traveling through the desert, he saw a path to the side and thought it over. Since I have traveled for so long in the desert, and I cannot find her, let me follow this path. Perhaps it will bring me to an inhabited area. And he walked for a very long time. Today we're going to talk about what does it mean, deserts, fields, and forests. I took a path to the side, but our goal for this next section is to answer and address 4 questions with regard to lessons for life. 1. Avodas Hashem contains various stages, including spiritual desolation, toil, and a success that presents a challenge of its own. The ability to hide from oneself and others behind the veneer of accomplishment. It's interesting that the question that we most ask ourselves when we meet is, oh, what do you do? As if that defines one another. But it certainly does once we know that information. We fill in all the boxes. Then we talk about as we proceed from one level of spiritual development to another, it says we must leave the highest stage of level 1 and enter the lowest stage of level 2. So, in other words, many times it feels like we're falling. We go up a new place, but we fall. Although this lull may be seen as a yerida, a spiritual descent, it is in fact the surest sign of progress. 3. It is imperative for each Jewish person to search for his or her unique pathway in Avodas Hashem. One way to accomplish this is by finding the areas of Torah that speak to our particular soul and allocate time to exploring them. Well, here we are. The Lost Princess, Rabbi Nachman. Another is to discover the mitzvah, minchag, or hanhaga with which we feel most connected and focus our attention on that particular area of Avodas Hashem. And that can certainly change, but if we're in a 12-step program, the mitzvah is certainly to channel our addictive challenges into Avodas Hashem, maybe through service, step 12. And finally, 4, the primary manner in which one can merit to build an intimate relationship with Ribbono Shel Olam, the Master of the world, is by engaging in Hisbodedus, personal prayer in one's own words, setting aside time each day to speak candidly with Creator of all, solidifies our emunah and enables us to bring Hashem into every detail of our lives. So let's explore in greater detail deserts, fields, and forests. So at the outset of the Viceroy's journey, he travels through 3 distinct landscapes, deserts, fields, and forests. What is the spiritual significance of these 3 terrains, and what do they represent in our search for the lost princess of youth? The Breslover Meshpe'im teach that desert, fields, and forests hint to 3 major stages in the process of spiritual recovery. Let us explore them one by one. Okay, what makes a desert? Well, a desert is a place of desolation and very little growth. Its cracked ground and dusty ear conjure the broken-hearted cries of David HaMelech. My soul is like parched land for you, from Tehillim 143:6, Psalms 143, verse 6. My soul thirsts for God, also Psalm 63, verse 1. At this initial stage of growth, the heart is closed, the mind numb, and the barren earthiness seems to stretch on forever. Here we feel directionless and lost amidst winds of doubt which whip up blinding clouds of anguish and renewed sense of hopelessness. Our Torah study and tefillah have no taste. The atmosphere of our Avodas Hashem is arid and dry. This is the desert, the deathly silence within which the Viceroy's journey begins. So true. When we first start with our addiction, it feels like we've entered the Midbar, the desert. We've gone out from Mitzrayim, from the suffering, but we have yet to taste the promised land. We've been told to throw out our drug of choice, our bottle of water, because it's, in fact, seawater. It's killing us, but it's the only water I have. The deathly silence. Here is where it begins. What is the avodah of the desert? It's to serve Hashem without feeling, and even when devoid of inspiration. I remember being told, just go to meetings, just show up, just read the book, just work the steps. It's not about how we feel. In fact, it's even been said that in the big book, there's no chapter called Into Feeling or Into Thinking. There's only a chapter called Into Action. Keep showing up for Minyan, continuing to study Torah in whatever way we can, and holding tight to our observance of Halacha, no matter how difficult it seems. Na'aseh v'shima, we will do and we will hear. Just like then we traveled through the desert before we reached the promised land. This was the declaration of our ancestors who received the Torah in the Midbar Sinai, the Sinai desert. It has multiple meanings, and one hints to this service, this avodah. Even before hearing, experiencing the sweetness of spiritual illumination, we are satisfied with doing, engaging in avodas Hashem simply because we know that it is what Hashem desires, what our soul craves, and what we need to do in order to put our lives in order. Because life is marked by many ups and downs, the winters and summers of the human condition, the ability to push forward in time of constricted consciousness is a necessary condition to attaining true spiritual fulfillment. In Kesher Shem Tov, we read, Hashem held the mountain over the Jews to teach that even one feels no desire for Torah and Avodas Hashem, he is not free to sit idly. Rather, he must act, even against his will, as if he was being forced. And this is a good path for the Jewish person in time of katnus, never to interrupt his avodah simply because he feels little desire, but rather to nevertheless perform acts of holiness. Katnus, small, katan. In teaching that the Viceroy begins his search in a desert, Rabbi Nachman intends to make the principle revealed by our sages that Kol hashalos kashos, all beginnings are difficult. Again, from Tehillim 126:5. One does not attain spiritual illumination in one day. However, knowledge that we must experience this doubt and confusion as we set out on our search gives us the strength to carry on, to keep on moving. Eventually, we enter the next stage of development, the field. The field hints to the second stage of spiritual recovery. A field is a place of growth and production, of healthy crops and lush vegetation. However, the field is a place of tremendous toil. While at this stage the searching soul begins to witness some degree of progress, it is only by way of strenuous work and persistent effort. Those who plant with tears reap with joy. Again, from Tehillim 126:5. Saying, David HaMelech, any fruit we may cultivate in the field is a product of our tireless labor. Ultimately, while tasting the sweet fruits in the field of growth is certainly a positive and rewarding experience, the princess is still nowhere to be found, and the viceroy must move on. This is the work, steps 4 through 9. The next phase in the viceroy's search is the forest. This landscape is teeming with all levels of life, a place of abundant growth and development. Kabbalistically, the forest represents the powers of intellect and the unique capacity of the human mind to contemplate lofty ideas of transcendent spirituality. After spending a long time in the fields of toil and labor, 4 through 9 is the process of tshuva. The Jew is elevated to a realm of resplendent clarity, where he finds it easy to ponder the spiritual nature of the world and his divine mission within it. Still, Rabbi Nachman teaches that this is not yet the ultimate level. While the forest's mighty trees represent existential lucidity and spiritual accomplishment, they simultaneously represent the ability for one to hide, a previous impossibility in the desolation of the desert and the limited growth of the field. Here we are now living on a spiritual plane, but if we don't work steps 11 and 12, if we don't continue in step 11 to improve through prayer and meditation, our conscious contact with our higher power, and step 12 to carry this principle into all our affairs, it is possible, in fact, for a Jew to spend all his life plumbing the depths of spiritual philosophy and halachic intricacies in a matter of arrogance and sophistication, and yet still remaining disconnected from his princess. The vitality, passion, and joy that simple faith and a true relationship with Hashem engenders. In addition, the forest presents another danger. Having tasted true enjoyment in Torah and Avodah, one may feel that it is no longer necessary to seek the princess of youthful passion. Acutely aware of these points and the abundant peril presented by the forest, the viceroy continues his search. As we close, let's keep in mind, in addition to this Avodah-oriented interpretation, perhaps it is possible to suggest that the desert field and the forest alludes to the viceroy's histalus, his efforts towards attaining the horse, money, and servant he requested in the previous chapter. The desert refers to the viceroy's to Shavas Hagruf, rectification of his physical health, by way of proper eating and exercise. The field refers to efforts to attain financial security, as the field is always a symbol for a person's wealth. So you see that even along the journey, we don't wait, we continue to push on, even through the struggles, through the harshness, through the lack of physical health or financial well-being or intellectual understanding of what we're doing. As always, our goal remains the same, to reclaim the vitality, passion, and joy that simple faith and a true relationship with Hashem engenders. May it be. We're coming now to Rosh Hashanah, so that's why the schedule is a little bit different if you're catching this on different days than usual. It's a time to really take a look at what it is we're going to do in the coming year. What are we willing to give up? What are we willing to take on in order to merit the things that we're asking of our higher power? These perhaps three things: relationships, finance, and health, intellectual awareness and relationship, emotional intelligence. Secondly, parnassah, financial well-being, and health, in the pursuit of finding and reclaiming our inner child in the year ahead. So we're all encouraged to take on something small, whatever it might be, maybe to go to a certain number of live meetings, a certain number of Zoom meetings, something slightly more than we've done before, maybe to actively take on to sponsor another person or a person in the coming month or the coming year, just to continue to grow and to make a commitment to that growth in a quantifiable number. But whatever we think of, typically we're suggested to do half, take on half of what we think we can do in order that we are successful. And there were times when one day at a time was too much for me, and I took on half a day or even 15 minutes until I was able to go a day at a time. Shana Tova, have a happy and sweet year.